And it is the May 20th edition of Sports Talk with Mr. Jim and the Star Lord, Chris Pratt. We are brought to you tonight by Usha's Tailoring and Alteration. Usha's Tailoring and Alterations, a long time in business. Location on them is 558 Gravois Road. Wedding gowns, prom dresses. They do up to 500 every season that they have it. Obviously, Chris, they're coming out of that season now. We go out of prom, we come into the wedding season, lots of wedding gowns to be altered. Men, she hasn't forgotten about you either. You can bring in everything from overalls, I've seen it happen, folks, to pants to get shortened, waist taken in. You got a suit that's too big for you. Usha can taper that in for you, and she's over at Usha's Alterations and Tailoring. Phone number 314-238-4612. Usha's Tailoring and Alterations, still a primary sponsor of Sports Talk with Mr. Jim and the Star Lord, Chris Pratt. I want to let everybody know, Chris, yourself, I have Jim Plyman hopefully going to join us next Tuesday, and then we will be going remotely. Still looking forward to this. JP Sports Bar in Eureka, Tuesday, June the 3rd. We're going to be at that sports bar. Going to talk to John about the many decades that he's been in business. And again, looking forward to that. And hopefully this will be a summer thing. We'll see how things work out at this point, but looking forward to getting that up and going. So hopefully Chris will have Jim Plyman joining us next week, and then it may be a you and I show for a little while, and I'll eventually start getting the Prepcast crew back in once we get hopefully familiar with the sports bar situation over there at JP's in Eureka. Looking forward to that. Chris Pratt, how are you? I'm fine. Really, really good. We're still alive. Had the tornado warning last night for the area. I told my wife to come downstairs with the dogs, and we kind of waited it out nervously till about 20 minutes till midnight when Steve Templeton said there's enough rain, heavy rain out there that I don't think that the funnels are going to come down, but there sure have been a lot of them here over the last week or so. Yeah. Yeah. And all the rain. 20 plus inches of rain. April and May combined. 20 plus inches. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that major storm.
Right.
You know, you know, last night. I mean, we slept through. I mean, our phones went off, but we kind
Yeah.
of looked. Everything was parted south of us, so we're like, and so we just kind of went back to sleep. And obviously the house was still here and everything was good, so I'm not too worried about it. It just seems like it's becoming such a regular occurrence, so it's kind of you know it's just odd. It's
Right.
every week we've got severe weather warning.
Exactly. Chris, what's hot right now? Well, our St. Louis Cardinals are hot right now. What are they, 12-2, 10-2?
Yeah, I mean if you would have told me, or you would have told me that they would have been vying for first place in the division, the pitching staff would be nothing short of dominant. As of right now, the relief or the bullpen has been coming in and holding the fort down. The offense has been, the biggest surprise to me is just that the offense has been so consistent. I mean, every now and then they do get shut down, like they did that last game. What was it? They lost 2-0 or 2-1.
Right, to the Royals,
To
the
the Royals.
final game.
That's going to happen from time to time, but I mean, this new pitching coach has just been, both the pitching and the hitting coach. They're doing wonders for these guys who, I mean, look at how many guys last year just had career lows. Makes me wonder if we had held on to Goldschmidt, what he might be doing. Because obviously he's shown that you give him protection in the lineup, he's still got the swing, he still has it. And I was thinking that last year was just evidence of time catching up with him, but by all appearances, I may have been wrong in that.
What about that Brendan Donovan tearing it up?
Well, I mean, I expected him to be, you give him a chance to play. I mean, he's hitting better than I thought, but I figured he'll flirt with 300, but he's, 280, 290 hitter. But he is just, I mean, you want to talk about somebody taking advantage of his opportunity. And I mean, he's the type of guy you need in your lineup. I mean, he's not going to give you a whole lot of power. He's got some pop, but he's a guy who's going to get on base. He's got some speed. So I mean, he's somebody that the pitchers and the fielders have to pay attention to. But yeah, I mean, flirting with the batting top batting average in the league, and
very much so.
And then you've got our catcher too, who's Ivan Herrera, who's right there. I mean, he lost some time, so I don't know if he's got enough games played to be up there among the league leaders. But I mean, here's a guy who's also showing that he's very capable offensively.
I've heard that opinions right now of Pedro Pegues. The pitchers love this guy. They love Pegues, the way that he is handling all of them at this point, and he's got that timely bat as well. I've heard just an awful lot of good things about Pedro Pegues, and you finally, Contreras finally came out of it, and he's been ripping the cover off the baseball. We got a Sonny Gray who posted his 5th win last night, so he's 5-1.
10 strikeouts, 1 walk.
It's just been nobody expected it, but it's hopefully winning brings out attendance.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, I think everybody, myself included, looked at, we didn't do anything in free agency. You lose Goldschmidt. There were, we all expected Arenado to be dealt before opening day. That never happened. But, you can't, we looked at the pitching staff, and you and I talked about it in spring training. It's like, okay, Gray is your number 1. But then outside of that, you've got, okay, we're not sure about Michaelis. Matz, we're not, don't know if Matz is ever going to be able to put it back together. But it's like you've got a whole bunch of arms that were like, you don't really think much because they, from what we've seen of Liberatore and some of the others. But Liberatore seems to be putting things together. I mean, I know he went the other night. He was credited with the loss, but you only give up 2 runs and your offense can't pick you up. That's not the pitcher's fault. Right. But I'm not blaming the offense either because the other guy just shut him down. I mean, it's going to happen. But, you look at the team and there was just nothing to be overly impressed by. You're looking at the, what was going to be the distracting drama of Arenado. Is he going to be here? Is he going to be traded? You had a couple of bright spots, but, you're not thinking that you're going to be flirting with first place. I mean, what was the consensus. And when the Cardinals don't sell out opening day, that's a huge alarm right there. And I think, the St. Louis fan base have just gotten their fill of Mozeliak. I think the consensus is they want him gone. Granted, he's, he'll finish out this year and then he will be, but I think they wanted him to step away or the Cardinals just relieve him of his duties. Because the Cardinals, I mean, as a fan base, we're used to better. We're used to them making splashes in free agency or pulling off some type of trade to make the team better. And by all appearances, they're like, okay, we're just going to phone it in this year and not, they called it a rebuild. But if you look at it, it's like, well, the Cardinals aren't that far away. If you add a couple more pieces, there's no reason to rebuild this team. And yet, I know Mozeliak is probably going to say, well, this is what I expected out of this team. But no, I don't think anybody will definitely take it. We want the Cardinals to be in the playoffs. We want them to be a major factor in the National League Central. And when they're not, again, as a fan base, and we're well entitled to ask this, is we want better. We want, the winning ways that the Cardinals have exhibited. We want that. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with their fan base expecting more out of the front office.
I was going to tell you, I've got the game on right now. You may have as well. It looks like the Cardinals cut into that Detroit lead. It's 4-2. I'm guessing Arenado may be homered. I'm just guessing that. I didn't catch it, but I'm guessing he might have homered, make it 4-2.
I don't have it on right now, but
4-2 in the fifth inning. What a game last night! That game had the rain delay.
Yeah.
I got home last night and had a Chewy delivery for the dogs, and suddenly the downpour hits. So I'm out getting pummeled, trying to get my box opened up, but getting my 40-pound bag of dog food out of the case. And then I said to myself, well, this game's going to go into a rain delay here any time now. And then they come out of the rain delay, and the Cardinals go nuts.
Right. And you were right. It was Arenado hit a 2-run home run.
2-run home run. Okay. So the Cardinals have sliced into that Detroit deficit. Boy, that made Detroit look small last night, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, the Cardinals offense has just been, like I said, it's been a bright spot. It's been very good. And you look at it when you've got and again, this is what we talked about when we were in spring training as to whether or not they were going to put why is the second baseman, his name escaping me now?
Brendan Donovan?
No, the power hitting left-hander. Nolan Gorman.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about, like, right now, okay, Jordan Walker is the lone down player in this lineup. He's only batting 193, although he is showing signs of that his power's coming back, but a strikeout victim. But he's the only really hole in this lineup. You go Nootbaar, who's hitting well, Wynn's hitting well, Donovan, then Contreras, Herrera, Arenado, Walker, then Pagas, and then Victor Scott.
Yeah.
There's not really any holes in this lineup outside of Walker, who's struggling to hit 200.
It looks to. I didn't mean to cut you off, Chris. It looks to me like I saw Walker in the dugout on Sunday talking with John Jay, and the consensus seems to be that at least he's trying to keep in communication with his hitting coach. He wants desperately to improve. He wants desperately to improve.
Well, I mean, and I would say the same thing with Gorman. I mean, they're putting in the work. It's just not coming out. And with Walker, I mean, part of the problem is when you're 6'7" or 6'8", however tall that guy is, you've got a bigger strike zone. And if they pitch him low, he hasn't figured out how to, protect the plate. I mean, I see him often. He drops to one knee chasing these low pitches. And if you're really altering your batting stance that much, you've got that much body movement, it's going to be very hard to catch up with Major League pitching if they're pitching you down and away. And right now, I think the Major League scouts have figured out how to pitch around Walker.
Yeah.
And, Walker's the one that has to make the adjustments. And, I mean, he looks like he's willing. He's putting in the work. But unfortunately, in the major leagues, it's all about results. And if you're not giving the results that you need to be giving, unfortunately, like I said, I don't know how much longer the Cardinals are going to, continue to work with him or give him the everyday shot in right field. But again, just as I said with Nolan Gorman, I don't want to see anybody fail. But it comes a time where, okay, you're a liability right now. And you've got other players who, would be deserving of a shot. So it's up to the Cardinals either to pull the Band-Aid off or option him and, make him earn the spot, and you can't do it when you're not hitting 200.
There had been fans mentioning the fact that Alec Burleson may eventually take that right field spot from Jordan Walker. That appears to be at least a sentimental type situation. Of course, I would love nothing better. Huge Alec Burleson fan, and his bat is starting to come alive. Also heard, Chris, that Nolan Gorman, that Nolan would be in there, but there's one problem. You can't fool with the winning formula right now. And the Cardinals are putting on the field what is producing the winning product right now. He's just a victim of a numbers game right now. They're putting the best possible product, the winning formula, on the field. And, if you were losing, maybe you could use Nolan Gorman a bit more.
Again, it's the same thing with Nolan Gorman. He's hitting 171. He's got, let's see, what is his regular stats right now? So 171, he's got 1 home run, 9 RBIs with 25 strikeouts. Again, when he's had the opportunity, he went through that one stretch where he was hitting well, but outside of that, it's the same Nolan Gorman we've seen for the past couple of seasons. And, again, winning is everything. And right now, when you've got Donovan, who's leading the league in hitting, or is among the league
very
leaders,
close,
you can't take him out of the lineup.
Not at all.
And your outfielders, other than Walker, are producing. You don't want to take Scott out. You don't want to take Nootbaar out.
Nope.
There's no other places for Gorman to play. You can have him spell Nolan Arenado for a time because he is a natural third baseman. But again, if the Cardinals are winning, you don't need to put a guy who can't hit 200 in the lineup. We already have one of them. And again, when you've got guys who are striking out as often as Walker and Gorman have a propensity to, again, they can walk the pitch, work around, other hitters to get to these two. Because if they're not striking out, they're going to either pop it up or hit into the double play. And that's what, the frustrating thing is that, you want to see these guys do well. They were highly touted, minor league players. They're supposed to be, the next coming of, the star player for the Cardinals. It just hasn't materialized. And, you want them to, but it just hasn't.
I would love to pick John Jay's brain right now to see, to find out what he is seeing in the batting cage when Nolan Gorman is batting at this point. Where is it a mechanical issue with his swing? I would just love to pick John Jay's brain, and not that he's in a position to say anything, nor would he say anything at this point. But again, there's just no opportunity to put Nolan Gorman in. I believe that Gorman will stay with this club, more than likely, all season long. But I just don't, unless he comes in a pinch hitting situation. But obviously, I think you and I would both agree he's not the best option right now to bring into a game, period.
Well, yeah. And even though I know that, these analytics are so overblown, but you can't have a guy who's not hitting 200 being in your everyday lineup. You just can't, because it's too much of a liability. You've got the team winning. You've got production pretty much top to bottom in your lineup. And yeah, you've got other options. And at this point, I'd rather them see, put Sagisi at second if you're going to spell Donovan. But I believe he got called back down. But you've got other options at second base other than Gorman. I don't know whether Gorman still has options left. And the thing is, yes, he's going to remain on this roster because no other team wants him right now. You're not going to trade for a guy, and unless the Cardinals outright release Gorman, no other team is going to take a chance on giving up anything for him. It just isn't going to happen.
I don't know what is going through Nolan Gorman's mind at this point, but it's just a fact that a winning team right now, there's just not a position There's just not a place for him, at this point to contribute. Let's talk about this pitching. I don't think either of us had any idea that this pitching staff would produce innings. They're producing innings. Palante getting a ton of ground ball outs. Sonny Gray, 5-1. Could very well see him in the All-Star game if he continues to do what he's doing at this point. He's giving us more innings. Everybody producing, and Miles Mikolas. Miles Mikolas going longer in the games, and he has lowered his earned run average. This is a man that admitted he had something to prove, and he wasn't getting the job done. I was seeing Alexa Dat interviewing him in the dugout. I think it was two days ago, maybe in Kansas City, and he was talking about what he's had to work on. Chris, I'm starting to think the end of the season comes, and he finishes well. No reason to believe he won't at this point. Do you bring him back?
I think I think it's too early to tell on that right now because the thing is with Mikolas is we have to remember that he's got a lot of innings and from playing in Japan and then coming over here. He's not a young pitcher anymore. But if you're talking maybe bringing him back on a 1-year deal, if he puts up the numbers that we want to see out of Mikolas, because he's not going to command a whole lot of money.
Nope.
I think he's going to provide that good veteran presence on a relatively young pitching staff. And if you have him and Gray working with a lot of these young kids, I definitely don't see that it is a bad thing. So I think it's just a matter of seeing how he finishes the year. But when he, the thing I liked about Mikolas is he took responsibility. He said, "Hey, I'm not happy with the way I'm producing. I know I can do better." And he simply went out there and did that. And I will never take it away for someone who has that mentality of taking responsibility that he's not producing the way he wants to. And he went out there and figured out what he needed to do. And again, as we talked with Mikolas, he's not going to blow people away with his fastball anymore. So he needs to be like a Greg Maddux. He needs to work the corners, work in and out, up in the zone, low in the zone, and keep hitters off balance. He's doing that now.
Yes, he is. He told Alexa that same thing, that I've got this pitch, and I forgot what he was referring to it as. And he says the way I've got it designed right now, it's going to break at the last second with the way that I'm throwing it at this point. And he demonstrated to Alexa exactly what he was, talking about. At this point, this team is about as close to playing perfect baseball as they possibly can at this point. And I just, other than what we've already addressed, the one weakness or two that there is on this club, it's producing a winning formula. You and I think most of Cardinal Nation right now is just pleasantly surprised by the way this team has played.
No, definitely. We looked at what they had done in the offseason. We weren't impressed. We looked at the roster, and it's like, okay, they'll probably be a middle of the pack team. But, they're not going to flirt with first place because we didn't think the pitching staff would be able to carry them to be, a team that was vying for, first, second place in the division. Well, the pitching staff has proved us wrong. The offense is coming around as a lot of the, their averages are all up. The power numbers are up. But more importantly, when they're not just winning on home runs, it's, they're hitting a lot of doubles. They're bringing, they get runners on. They're bringing them in by multiple means, not just the home run, but they're playing small ball. It's, they'll hit the singles, they'll drive in somebody, the sac fly. They're scoring however they can. And with this team, the trick is, can they continue this? And I hate being that, that downer, that doubting person. It's not that, but you've got a team that's relatively inexperienced. The team, the veteran leadership that had been on those World Series teams, they're all gone. You've got, players left from the last time that the Cardinals made the World Series, but that's when they got swept, 2-0, and they were bounced early. So, if this relatively young team can continue this throughout this year and maintain within striking distance, I'm going to be curious as to what how they do. I mean, of course, then you have to go through the buzzsaw that is the Dodgers at some point, and that inflated salary that they just pay whomever they want. They just obscenely pay them, and that's who they get. I mean, I think it's bad for baseball what the Dodgers have done, but
the team that was recently swept by the Angels.
Well, true, and I mean they're not. They're still in first place in that division, but I mean they're showing some chinks in their armor. The Mets have lost first place in the NL East, and Juan Soto is showing that exactly what I had said all along, is that he's not going to live up to that contract. He had a career year with the Yankees, but most people who hit in front of Aaron Judge are going to have better offensive numbers because they'd rather pitch to that person rather than Aaron Judge.
I could not believe what I saw on ESPN that Soto's manager. I find it. I don't know what to say. You stay at the plate. You stay at the plate and watch your ball hit the green monster. I'm at a loss to understand this mentality. Apparently, this is not the first time that he's done this.
No, I mean, one of the things with Soto is that he's still very immature as a player. Everybody, he's saying, well, I think I hustle. Well, no. He's been criticized his entire career for not running out balls, not running out ground balls, not running out fly balls. And then when he hits one, he wants to admire it. And what happens? It hits the green monster. He's sitting there admiring it, thinking he hit a home run. And whoops. But I mean, this is the whole thing with Soto that I didn't understand why they gave him. He set the the highest contract in Major League history, and it's like, okay, I just simply looked at it like this. Okay, he's not better than Ohtani, who is considered the best player in baseball right now. So why should he make more? He's not a better player than Mike Trout. Mike Trout's a multiple MVP winner. So, other than the Mets just being known for making really dumb contract decisions, I don't understand why they signed him for that or why people touted him the way they did, because outside of his rookie of the year, in that year that the Nationals did win the World Series, I mean, he did play a big part in that. I'm not going to say he didn't. But he's widely inconsistent. He'll hit 300 one year, he'll hit 230 the next year. I just didn't understand the contract signing other than, again, everybody's so focused on the analytics and the potential that I think it clouds their judgment, and they don't look at the reality of the situation is that he's not worth that contract. He's never going to live up to that contract. You could have got him for, $300 million if you're going to pay him that, because I mean he does have some credibility to his name, and he has shown that he can be, that player. But until he does it on a consistent level, until he wins an MVP, why pay him as one?
It's just a pay me situation. Cardinals have moved within one now. It looks like in the sixth, Chris, they got to run another production of a hit. Scores win. It looks like 4-3 in the bottom of the sixth. Herrera again hits it to right field for a single, bringing home the runner from third. So as you mentioned earlier, the small ball playing a big role again for the Cardinals, staying within their comfort zone, their limitations as far as hitting, that it doesn't take a home run to tie this game. We get it in smaller increments. Chris, I want to talk here briefly about Kim Hamilton and Off the Hook Embroidery. I have just placed an order with him for some great T-shirts at this point. We'll have those in a few weeks. May even put those up for sale on the Facebook page with the Podcast with Mr. Jim Facebook page. I know you saw those great T-shirts with the logo featuring the Star-Lord, Chris Pratt, on the front of the shirts. And Kim Hamilton, I just wouldn't trust anybody else with my embroidery. He's done jackets for me, sports shirts, you name it. Kim is a wonderful embroiderer. This man served our country for 35 years. In the Army, he had a dream of becoming an embroiderer, and he fulfilled that dream. He's also a cigar aficionado. Both he and his wife do smoke cigars. He's available at Off the Hook Embroidery. That's OFFDAHOOKEMB, Kim Hamilton at Off the Hook Embroidery. You mentioned Mr. Jim. He'll give you a discount on your quantity that you order. The cigar info is info@odhcigars.com. He's got a fantastic golf line as well of shirts, various things. Speaking of golf, over the weekend, Scotty Scheffler, a dominant performance, a man with one of the most unorthodox swings in the sport of golf, doing what he is doing. He is showing to me shades of another guy, Tiger Woods. I don't know if he'll get there or not, but he's sure off to a fantastic start. And like Tiger, when you interview Scotty Scheffler, he says, I am a competitor and I don't know anything else. I don't take losing very well.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that it looked like Jon Rahm was going to did catch him, Scotty Scheffler picked up the pace, and then Jon Rahm fell apart. I watched most of that weekend. I think all the weekend coverage of the PGA Championship. Just another impressive victory for Scheffler. They've still got the PGA. They've got the U.S. Open, the U.S. Open, and they've still got what they now refer to as the Open Championship. I know left as far as the slams are concerned on the major schedule. I've kind of monitored it, and then again, I haven't. I was picking up some comments Sunday that I found pretty relevant to the situation between the LIV Golf Tour and the PGA Golf Tour. Comments that were made very, very interesting, saying that nobody sees any merger between LIV and the PGA Tour, which I would tend to agree with. And then it was mentioned as well that the players that have taken these big pots to have gone, play for the LIV people, the Saudis, have really almost become unheard from now. That they just don't have that same support that they had, with the PGA Tour. Cameron Smith was a good example of that. The Australian took something like $500 million from the Saudis to defect from the PGA, like so many golfers did in those first 2 years, and the money being thrown around, and now a great point made on Sunday, local golfing show here at the 101 Sports Station, that you just don't hear about these guys anymore. You just don't.
Well, I think it to use the old adage, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. When you have something that is as established as the PGA, it's going to be hard to compete with that. And yeah, I mean, they threw a whole lot of money around, but I mean, their events aren't being as covered like the PGA because the PGA is the golf institution in this country and, well, pretty much worldwide. And, I give credit where they're trying to compete, they're trying to offer, I guess kind of break up the monopoly that is the PGA, because let's look at it. I mean, every sports league is a monopoly because there's really
yes,
no
it is.
competition. But by the same token, you have to, there gotten to be that monopoly for a reason. And if you think you're going to be able to take all these golfers, but then still be able to compete with the PGA, you're still going to be able to, get the television rights, get the advertising, and get everything else. No. I mean, I think the one mistake they made is you still have to look at political climate in this country, and that is the telling thing, because who are U.S. advertisers going to want to advertise with? The PGA or LIV? Knowing that it's Saudi. I'm not saying that we have any hostilities towards the Saudis, but political climate is kind of everything. And I think that's the tell of the tale right there. It's people are going with what's familiar. They're okay. This new upstart, well, it's the Middle East. And you're always going to have some people who are going to be like, well, it's the Middle East. We don't care. We're against all Middle East. Even though we're allied with the Saudis, there's no issues with the Saudis in the United States. But I think some people just simply look at it from that political spectrum, unfortunately. And that's what is killing that LIV. Nobody's really paying attention to it because, again, you're going up against a juggernaut. You're the young upstart. And, I just think that gathering all the big names is good. It'll give you some credibility, but after a while, it's going to fall away, and that's exactly what's taking place.
The prince, the crown prince over there, Chris, you're probably aware of the fact that I'm about as big a boxing fan as there is out there right now. I pay for the big heavyweight, main events. My wife will tell you I live, breathe, eat, and sleep professional boxing. Amongst that's on the tops of my list as far as sporting events are concerned. I found it very interesting that they have the crown prince. They usually interview him in the ring just before the main event, and he has said that I am constantly in touch with the biggest names in our sport. They lured Canelo Alvarez away when Alvarez was ready to sign a deal with another boxing company. In came Riyadh season. They refer to themselves as Riyadh season. And they told Canelo Alvarez, don't worry about the money at this point. We're going to make you the richest that you've ever been. We just want you to come. And I think he signed a 4 or 5 fight deal. But the prince told the announcers, he said, I am in a position to take over the sport. He says, I have the money. And we all know that in professional boxing, like professional sports, it's all about the money. And he said, I've been in negotiations with this person, with that person. And honestly, Chris, that's why there aren't many American bouts left. Las Vegas used to be the mecca of boxing. Texas Stadium is still getting a few things at this point, still getting a few events. But in all honesty, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, what they call the Riyadh season, that's how they promote their boxing on the DAZN channel, and I've paid for a majority of the boxing matches that they've had on. I will probably be tuning in. I believe it's either June or July. They convinced Alexander Usyk. I thought he might retire after the 2 victories over Tyson Fury. Nothing left to prove, but they're exploring this angle with Daniel Dubois. He and Daniel Dubois are going to meet for a second time. Dubois crunching body shot to Usyk, which I thought was low. Several disagree. You can take your own point of view. A beltline shot, whatever you want to call it, put Usyk down. He got back up and knocked out Dubois in the 9th round. And I don't see anything different happening in the second fight. But somehow, again with money, they were able to coax another Dubois Usyk fight, and I noticed that they're trying to get Tyson Fury back in the ring against Anthony Joshua, the battle of the Brits. I don't see that being much of a fight. I think that Joshua is just no longer the force that he used to be in the heavyweight division, and I think that if they ever do get Fury and him together, and that's not a guarantee because I don't think Fury's going to take the money. I just don't think he's going to take it at this point. Joshua, I don't think has much left either. He had a couple of good knockouts, and he faced Dubois and just got his clock cleaned. But the Saudis have just kind of taken over with this golf thing. And the person that has the golf show on Sunday. Just really, I hadn't really heard his golf show on Sundays, but he did an awesome job of just telling it, exactly like it is. That these live golfers may have made their money. Maybe that was the whole idea of leaving the PGA Tour. The PGA couldn't afford the bonuses that the Saudis were paying at this point. But as you said earlier, due to the fact they take the money, they have also lost recognition. You just don't hear about the Brooks Koepkas anymore. Bryson DeChambeau is about the only golfer that has been able to become a factor. And I know they let the live golfers play in the majors, but he's the only one that you really hear about his name right now, and he's usually competitive in everything that he's playing in at this point.
Well, but again, I mean, they weren't able to lure the top golfers.
Yep.
And that's the thing. I mean, you get a guy, and Brooks was a good golfer. He's, was always competitive. He was, you hear his name a lot, but you didn't hear his name as far as, oh, Brooks Koepka's won this major. He won this major. So, I mean, I think what you had was you had guys with name recognition, but they didn't have the tournament wins that they needed. But, you lure mid-range players with more money. Yeah, I mean, they're going to say, oh, well, I'm getting higher pay. Okay, where do I sign? To touch upon what you said with boxing, I remember growing up in the, my high school years in the 90s, early college years in the 90s, you had household names with boxing.
Yeah, you did.
You just don't have that anymore. I think the UFC really killed boxing in this, in this country, because now you see, instead of you're having, your top heavyweights being American boxers, they're now international. They're Russian. They're, British. And, for this, I mean, you're never going to have a guy with name recognition like Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, George Foreman. I think, and again, yeah, he's got the money, but okay, I mean, for that, I would say look at the, you need to look at what you're doing. You're trying to revitalize a dying sport. And I don't know if he's taken the market survey to really look at, well, what's killing boxing? Well, what's killing boxing is you don't have a major United States presence in it anymore. And, everything is gravitated toward the UFC because the UFC is getting immediate appeal. And it's, it's one of those that, their pay-per-views, I mean, they're all huge. I mean, you go to any sports bar and it's on. You go everywhere. They're, UFC, and the UFC fighters have more name recognition than any boxer now. I mean,
yes, they do, Chris.
Tyson Fury, there's name appeal. Like, for instance, and I can't think of, Tyson, not Wilder.
Deontay Wilder was wonderful for a long time. He was wonderful for a long time. And then my guess is, Chris, that the memorable fights that he had with Tyson Fury took a lot of the steam out of him. He refuses to quit at this point, but he has suffered some crushing losses, late in his career. He's still fighting. He's fighting a no name, I think, next month. But yeah, as you said, he was at one time one of the most feared punchers in the heavyweight division, that when you went in the ring against Wilder, it was just a matter of time before the right hand caught you, and then it was the end of your night. But he's just no longer the factor that he was. Right now, you've got Usyk, Alexander Usyk, and you've got the rise of another heavyweight that I just didn't think much of, and he has pulled it together. I think he's won about 7 or 8 fights in a row, Joseph Parker, and he's in the running right now to own a championship. But I'd have to agree with you, Chris, as far as UFC is concerned. A lot of people have turned to UFC. They have, and I follow it just a little bit. Facebook Reels are absolutely full of UFC bouts. Half women, half men. You get that shocking, stunning kick for a knockout, and you get down on the opponent, pound them, and it's over. The referee stop it 3 or 4 seconds after the pounding begins on the face, and you're unprotected.
Well, and I think the big thing with UFC is, boxing, you're going to be there a while. It's, 10 rounds, so okay, this fight's going to be, we've got 30 minutes worth of rounds, or is it, are they 5-minute rounds or 3-minute rounds? I forget.
3-minute rounds, but I can tell you what, there are a lot of situations. You do get some decisions, but Chris, I'll tell you what, all those weight divisions still produce spectacular, absolutely spectacular, by the book, textbook knockouts. They still, it can happen at any given time. I've seen guys ahead on scorecards, and Joe Blow lands the one big shot and turns a 6-round edge into a sudden knockout loss.
Right.
It doesn't take much.
No, it doesn't. But I think what people looking at, it's like, okay, you've got potentially a 10-round event as opposed to a 3-round UFC battle. And I think they're looking at it, well, I can go and I can view a UFC fight where I'm seeing 6 to 7 fights, and they're all quality bouts. Instead of, okay, I really only want to see this one fight, but I have to see all the fluff that leads up to it. And I think that's, part of, there's if they had people with just name appeal, but again, I mean, it's not like the days where you could name boxers in every weight class. Those days are over. You don't have the Sugar Ray Leonards. You don't have the Michael Spinks. You don't have Tommy Hearns. You don't have all these boxers from the, 70s, 80s, and 90s that were all very skilled. I mean, Canelo had name recognition. Floyd Mayweather, whether you hated him or you liked him, had name recognition. Nowadays, like I said, I mean, Wilder, as far, from the United States, he was the guy who had the name recognition. But like you said, when he couldn't beat Fury, did a lot of damage to him. More his reputation, because, I mean, I still saw him, what I thought it was a knockout of Fury, and somehow Fury got up when he got tagged by that right hand.
They said it was the rising of Lazarus.
I saw an interview with that.
And that it was.
He was out. He said
he was out. He got back up.
How he just willed himself to get back up. And I mean, like you said, I remember watching that fight. He's done. I mean, because he got clocked. There was no doubt. And yet he got up. And I'm like, wow, that's impressive. But again, not many people got up from, Tyson. If Tyson clocked it, most people weren't getting back up. If Foreman got a hold of you, you weren't getting back up.
The one punch.
Part of the again, the loss of the allure of boxing is that, you're seeing many going to the distance, or, TKO, you get 3 knockdowns. You're not getting those, knockouts. And let's face it, the people who are watching those sports want to see the knockouts, whether it's to satisfy their sadistic side or whatever it is, but you're paying to see the knockouts, and you're just not getting them. Whereas if the UFC, the knockouts are pretty common.
The Canelo Alvarez, legendary fighter, one thing that he did do, losing one of his fights to Dimitri Bivol, he turned Bivol overnight into a superstar. A light heavyweight boxer, and just technically skilled boxer, just had two incredible fights, and he won the second fight in the classic showdowns, and I think they're talking about a third fight coming up down the road. But it's become. I would have to agree with you, Chris. I don't get into UFC, but the other 100 million people that do, it has taken over. Mm-hmm. And professional boxing would tell you that. We are in competition. Is it any competition? Probably not. I'll take UFC. They'll say I'll take UFC any day over boxing.
Yeah.
I would.
Boxing could make a resurgence, but I mean, again, you're going to have to get, people. You're going to have to get, name recognition, and you're going to have to get somebody who has that dominant stretch where they're a champion for a while. People get behind them, and it's going to have to be, at least for the United States, it's going to have to be an American boxer. No one's going to really rally behind a Russian boxer, again, because when people see boxing, they're like, well, this is, they're going to say it's an American sport. It's not just an American sport; it's a worldwide sport. But
it is.
People like me, who's turning 50 next month, I can rattle off all the great boxers from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that you wanted to watch because it was electric when they were in the ring.
Right.
Sugar Ray Leonards and was it
Tommy Hearns?
Yeah, Tommy Hearns, one of the best fights of all time. You got Tyson, who you could blink and you'd miss the punch that knocked out his
Yeah.
opponent. There were all those memorable moments of boxing, and somehow that just they got away from it. And I know the scrutiny that Don King went under didn't help matters any, but again, it's they're going to have to recapture what they once had. Otherwise, like I said, boxing is a dying sport, and they're going to have to do something to bring it back. But UFC is entrenched, so you're going to have to find a way to compete with that. And I think you're going to have your traditional boxing fans like yourself who look at boxing for what it is. But I think a lot of people look at the mixed martial arts that gives you the boxing, but it also gives you the grappling, the submission holds, and it's more alluring because you don't know what's going to happen. You could all of a sudden have a guy put into a choke, taps out. You could have a guy who escapes a submission, puts a guy in another submission. Or you could just have that lightning fast kick to the head, that roundhouse or front kick, and the guy's knocked out unconscious. And as someone who was in martial arts as a kid, I know that has more appeal to me than boxing because I can relate to a lot of what they do. I took Taekwondo in my youth and took it primarily to keep my muscles limber from when I was playing soccer, so I didn't have the pulled quad, the pulled hamstrings, those types of injuries. But there's something about UFC that has that appeal, and I think you look at it and it's like, okay, well, everybody knows about martial arts, and when you start adding in the the various forms that are now people are gravitating towards. Jiu-jitsu was something you never really heard of unless you were special forces or military. Now you can find a jiu-jitsu studio virtually anywhere in the city, across the country. And like I said, that's just the changing. It's the changing of the guard. There's for combat sports, UFC came in, and unless they start screwing things up, I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon.
Oh, they won't. They won't be. The person I was referring to, Artur Beterbiev, knockout artist in the light heavyweight division. When he and Bivol fought, the best technical fighter, I had Bivol winning the first fight, and he didn't get the decision. And I did have him winning the second fight, and he did earn a split decision victory. And now I think they're talking about a third rematch, even though I'd like to see Bivol maybe in a rematch against Canelo Alvarez. And honestly, I think Bivol would win that rematch, as he did when he upset Alvarez a couple of years ago. Chris, it is 4-4. Birds have tied it.
Yep, there's that that don't quit mentality, and that's the other thing we didn't touch upon. The Cardinals they can get behind, and they're going to chip away. They're going to string those hits together, and they've got it doesn't have to be the home run. You string a bunch of hits together, you take walks, but again, that's where you don't have like we did last year. You had Gorman, you had Walker, and you could pitch around both of them, and they were. You look at how many, rallies that could have been, but either, they'd strike out, Gorman would hit into a double play, Walker would fail to bring somebody in, and you don't have that now.
We don't. Looking forward, I really am looking forward to our first appearance, the first Tuesday in June at 7:30, as Sports Talk will attempt to go remote. Don't honestly know how this is going to work out, Chris. We're going to try it in this format. I'm hoping to have John Bedroli, who owns the bar, on quite a bit that night. I really want to catch up with him and find out what makes the sports bar really the success that it is. When I was in there arranging this setup with John, a lot of guys playing pool. John takes his pool very seriously. I know that his pool team, I've talked about this last week, in fact, that they've gone national and have finished like second nationally. So these are gentlemen that take their billiards very seriously. But again, looking forward, I believe we are, what are we, 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 weeks from tonight, taking that show on the road. We'll see how things work out. And I'm hoping that's going to be a Tuesday night thing for us in the summer as Podcast with Mr. Jim looks to branch out a little bit and attract more people by going to a remote location. We'll see how things work for a podcast to work out of a sports bar for a Tuesday night, but we're going to try that. And again, I've got some T-shirts on the way as well at this point, so we'll see how things work out. How's Lucy doing? Your dog, how's Lucy working out?
She's doing fine. She's spoiled and rules the roost that are rules. She thinks
rules of the roost. That's the way the dogs usually do it. We're gonna wrap this up here soon. The Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese from Saturday. All I heard about was that I guess maybe pushing on Clark, a technical foul call when Reese went down to the floor. What has developed besides that? I've seen something about threats, fan threats.
Well, you've got, you've got Angel Reese, who's got an ego. You might as well call her the LeBron James of the WNBA.
Oh, okay.
She's got an ego that is. She's come out with some really dumb statements, and yes, she's a skilled player. But to me, a lot of her comments are racially fueled because obviously Caitlin Clark, really putting the WNBA on the map. And she's done more for the sport than Angel Reese ever could.
Correct.
And I just think Angel Reese is bitter about it. She's got chippy. And she's just showing that she's not doesn't understand professionalism. She's very immature. And if she can't be the primary spotlight, she thinks that no one else should be. And,
we'll just leave it at that. I think that's probably the best way to.
I only saw it because, I saw the highlights and was looking at the aftermath, and then seeing some of the comments that she's made in the past, it just seems to me that, this is why the WNBA, maybe they're going to get more viewership because of the drama that's playing out here. But, a lot of this shouldn't even be a thing, but it's unfortunate that it might detract from the league because you've got, the best player, in many people's eyes, Caitlin Clark.
Yep.
And, you've got, she's getting pushback now, and some of the comments that Angel Reese makes, I could see where it's going to turn off a lot of fans because they're just, some of the comments she made just doesn't need to be said.
And Caitlin Clark's even more improved than she was last year, and she looks like she's going to take over. She is going to take over the league at some point. She's going to take it over. Period. Scoring, rebounding, everything. It looks to me like.
Yeah. Well, as far as scoring, yes. I think there's better rebounders in the league, but that's not really her thing. But there's not really any holes in her game.
Very few.
She's already the face of the league.
Yes, she is.
Again, I think you should just. If I was in the WNBA, I'd look at it from the standpoint of, okay, this now second-year player is the face of this league. I'm going to step my game up. I want to compete for that. I want to be a more prevalent player. I want to be a more known player. But go about it the right way. Don't take your pot shots. Don't get chippy on the court. And things like that. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think Caitlin Clark right now, she's got the desire to win. Her team didn't win last year, but I think you talked about someone who's a competitor.
But she got the Indiana Fever into the playoffs. She got them into the, and they hadn't been in the playoffs 7 years.
Right. But I think for her, she wants a championship. They didn't get there, but I think that's, she just has that desire. She has that competitor in her, and she wants a championship. And I think within a few years, you're going to see that, the Fever be able to build around her, and you're going to have a championship caliber team. And you might see a team that goes on a run and wins multiple. You might have a dynasty team there. Only because the talent pool in the WNBA isn't what it is in the NBA right now. I think players are going to want to gravitate to, okay, where am I going to get more coverage? Where am I going to be more relevant? And right now, that's Indiana.
Sure, it sure is. Chris, one more push here for Usha's Alterations and Tailoring. They have been a primary sponsor of the Mr. Jim Sports Talk, along with the Star Lord Chris Pratt. And again, she's located at 558 Old Gravoy Road in Fenton. It's 314 238 4612. Usha for all your tailoring and alteration needs. Looking forward to the next couple of weeks. Again, Jim Plyman from Prepcast.com to join us next Tuesday. And then you and I solo at JP Sports Bar in Eureka on Tuesday, the first Tuesday in June. That'll be 2 weeks from tonight. Looking forward to that. Another inspirational sports talk show. He's the Star Lord, Chris Pratt. I'm Mr. Jim. We come to you Tuesday nights. We throw this thing onto the. It records live on Facebook, from what I can tell. It's on Facebook, and then I will eventually have it permanently on Facebook about 24 hours later. And then it ends up going over to YouTube a couple days later as well. Our views have gone up, and I appreciate all the listenership. If you're a sponsor out there and you want a spot on Sports Talk with Mr. Jim, you can give me a call at 314-640-7492. I can talk to you about a Conversations with Mr. Jim spot. Coming up on Conversations, I hope to in the next month, talk finances. A little bit far away from Sports Talk, but I think we're going to talk finances with an expert in that area that makes loans. We're going to talk about the financial state of the world at this point, as far as home loans and everything else is concerned. It's going to come up down the road. Again, he's the Star Lord Chris Pratt. Chris, thank you very much for your time tonight. A pleasure as always. I am Mr. Jim, and you have been tuned in to Sports Talk with Mr. Jim and the Star Lord Chris Pratt. Again, Jim Plyman expected in-house next Tuesday night for Sports Talk before we go remotely from JP Sports Bar in Eureka. I want to wish everybody a good night. And again, thanks for tuning in. This has been Sports Talk with Star Lord Chris Pratt and Mr. Jim. We'll see you all at the same time next week, next Tuesday.
Take care,
Chris, have a good night, sir.
You do the same.